Hello. I could still remember the way he used to run up to me when he was little, his tiny hands tugging at my sleeve, his eyes full of wonder. Auntie, let's play. Auntie, show me how to climb that tree. Back then, he was just a boy. Curious, full of life, always wanting to keep up with me. My sister, his mother, was never one for adventure. She preferred books, quiet afternoons, and a routine that never changed. But me? I needed movement, excitement, and somehow he always wanted to follow. Now, as I packed my weekend bag and checked my reflection in the mirror, I couldn't help but smile at the thought. He wasn't a boy anymore. He was a man. It had been a few months since I last saw him. University had changed him. He carried himself differently, with the kind of quiet confidence that came with growing into one's own skin. But even through the phone calls, I could sense that same warmth, that same eagerness to share pieces of his world with me. So when he invited me to stay at their house for a few days for his birthday, I didn't hesitate. It wasn't just a visit, it was tradition. Their house, tucked away beyond the fields and forests, had always been a second home to me. A place where the air smelled like earth and pine, where nights were so quiet you could hear your own thoughts. It was cozy, safe, untouched by time. Or at least that's how I remembered it. When I arrived, the house looked just as it always had. Warm lights glowing from the windows, the scent of my sister's cooking wafting through the air. But the first thing I noticed wasn't the house. It was him. He stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, watching me with an easy smile. "You made it," he said, stepping forward. I let out a soft laugh, pulling him into a hug. "Of course I did. Like I'd miss your birthday." He had grown taller, broader, his arms wrapped around me firmly, and for a fleeting second, I was struck by the feeling of being held by someone different. Someone older. Shaking the thought, I pulled away, playfully nudging his shoulder. "You look different." "You say that every time," he teased. I raised an eyebrow. "And I mean it every time." Dinner was filled with laughter, stories, and the comfort of familiarity. My sister, ever the gentle host, watched us with a knowing smile. "He was so excited when you said you'd come," she mused at one point. He rolled his eyes. "Mom," she chuckled, sipping her tea. "I just think it's sweet. You two always had your little adventures." That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I stepped out onto the back porch, wrapping a shawl around my shoulders. The night air was crisp, the sky endless above me. The sound of the forest rustled softly in the distance. I hadn't realized he had followed me until I heard his voice behind me. "You still love the night air, huh?" he murmured. I turned to face him. He was leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, watching me in that quiet way of his. "Some things never change," I admitted. He stepped closer. "And some things do." There was something in his voice, something I couldn't quite place. I swallowed, glancing away. "You've grown up a lot." He huffed a soft laugh. "You always say that too." "Because it's true." I smiled, nudging him playfully. "You're not the same kid who used to beg me to climb trees with him." "No," he said, his voice lower this time. "I'm not." I looked up at him then, truly looked at him. The boy who had once chased after me was gone. In his place stood someone else, someone who still looked at me with admiration, but now with something else lingering beneath it. Something I wasn't ready to name. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. I cleared my throat, forcing a chuckle. "You should get some sleep. Big day tomorrow." He didn't move. "Yeah," he said eventually. "Good night, Auntie." As I watched him disappear inside, I let out a slow breath. This visit was going to be different. I just wasn't sure how. The morning was crisp, the air cool against my skin as I stepped outside. The scent of damp earth and pine filled my lungs, a scent I had always associated with freedom. I wasn't surprised when he approached me after breakfast, hands in his pockets, that boyish grin playing at his lips. "Auntie, let's go for a drive," he said casually. "I want to show you something." I arched an eyebrow. "Oh, and what exactly are you showing me?" "You'll see." His tone was teasing, mysterious, and I couldn't help but smile. He knew me well, knew that I thrived on movement, on exploration. I wasn't one to sit around while life passed me by. We got into his car, and as he drove, I watched the landscape change. The paved road soon gave way to dirt paths, winding through fields and patches of dense forest. The trees grew taller, their branches stretching overhead, creating a tunnel of green and gold as the morning light filtered through. "You always did love nature," I mused, glancing at him. He smirked, hand steady on the wheel. "I wonder who I got that from." I chuckled softly. "Your mother would argue it wasn't her." "Exactly," he said, throwing me a knowing look. The car slowed as we reached a narrow path, barely visible through the tall grass. He parked, turning to me with a look that sent a strange flutter through my stomach. "Come on," he said, stepping out. I followed without question. The ground beneath my feet was soft, the scent of fresh leaves filling the air as we walked through the trees. He moved ahead, leading the way, and for a moment I watched him, his broad shoulders, the easy confidence in his stride. I had watched him grow up, and yet right now I felt like I was seeing him differently. "Almost there," he called over his shoulder. And then, suddenly, the trees opened up, revealing a clearing bathed in sunlight. And in the center of it stood a small wooden house. I stopped in my tracks, my breath catching. It was simple but sturdy, like something out of a forgotten fairy tale. A single window, a small porch, the wood rough but solid. "You built this?" I asked in disbelief. He turned to face me, pride glinting in his eyes. "Took me a while," he admitted. "But yeah, this is my place. My escape." I was stunned, not just by the fact that he had built it himself, but by what it represented, his solitude, his need for space away from the world. "You never told me," I murmured, stepping closer, my fingers grazing the wooden frame. He exhaled softly. "I didn't tell anyone." That made me pause. I turned to him, searching his face. "Why me?" His gaze was steady, open in a way that made my chest tighten. "Because you always understood me more than anyone else," he said simply. "Maybe because you're a psychologist, or maybe just because you've always seen me." Something in his voice made me swallow. "Come inside," he said, breaking the moment. The interior was cozy in its own way. A small table, a chair, books stacked neatly in one corner. There was a quiet warmth to it, like a place built with intention. As I took it all in, I felt his eyes on me. "You like it?" he asked. I turned, offering him a genuine smile. "I love it." He grinned, stepping closer. "I knew you would." There was a familiarity in the way he spoke to me, but also something else. A quiet tension that hadn't been there before. Then, without warning, he wrapped an arm around me in a playful hug, holding me against him for just a second too long. I laughed, but it was breathless. "What are you doing?" "Hugging my favorite aunt," he teased. I rolled my eyes, but my heart was beating too fast. He didn't let go right away. And when he finally did, his hands lingered on my arms, his fingers brushing my skin. "You look beautiful today," he said, his voice softer now. I froze. He had never said anything like that to me before. Not like this. A joke, I told myself. Just teasing. But when I looked up, I saw the truth in his eyes. He wasn't joking. I turned away quickly, stepping toward the window, trying to calm the sudden rush of emotions swirling inside me. "You're always complimenting me today," I said lightly, hoping to defuse whatever this was. He leaned against the table, watching me. Maybe I just finally have the guts to say what I've always thought. I let out a quiet breath, my fingers gripping the wooden frame. "You're different, you know," he continued. "Not like other people." I swallowed hard. "How so?" He hesitated, then pushed himself off the table, walking toward me until he was close, too close. "You make me feel like I don't have to pretend to be anything I'm not," he admitted. "Like I can just be myself." I looked up at him, my heart pounding. "This trip was a bad idea," I murmured. His lips quirked into a small smile. "Why?" "Because I like you. Because I shouldn't. Because this is dangerous." But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I forced a chuckle, stepping away. "Because you're getting sentimental on me." He laughed, running a hand through his hair. Yeah, maybe. The moment passed, but the air between us had changed. And I knew as we walked back to the car that things would never be the same again. Because for the first time, I wasn't just looking at him as my nephew. I was looking at him as a man. And that scared me more than anything. The air between us was still thick with unspoken things as we made our way back to the car. I could feel his presence beside me, steady and warm, but I kept my eyes ahead, my mind running in circles. What just happened back there? Why did I feel this way? I needed a distraction. We reached the car, and just as I was about to open the passenger door, he leaned against the hood, watching me with an easy smile. "Auntie," he said, his voice teasing, "do you know how to drive?" I hesitated, then sighed with a sheepish chuckle. "No, I don't." His eyebrows shot up. "Really? I thought you'd know everything by now." I rolled my eyes. "Oh, please. I never had the time to learn." He tilted his head, considering something. Then, with a grin, he gestured toward the driver's seat. "Then now's the time." I blinked. "Wait, what?" "Come on," he encouraged, stepping closer. "Get in. I'll teach you." I stared at him, my heart suddenly picking up speed. I had always wanted to learn, always told myself I'd get around to it eventually. But now, standing here in the middle of nowhere, with him watching me like that, I wasn't sure if I was more nervous about the car or the fact that we were alone, with nothing to distract from whatever this was between us. Still, I wasn't one to back down from a challenge. "Fine," I said, lifting my chin. "But if we crash, it's on you." He laughed, opening the door for me like a gentleman. "I'll take full responsibility." I slid into the seat, gripping the steering wheel with both hands, suddenly feeling out of my depth. He rounded the car and got in beside me, his body close, his presence overwhelming in a way I wasn't prepared for. "Okay," he said, his voice soft, patient. "First, let's get you comfortable." He reached over, his hands brushing my arms as he adjusted my grip on the wheel. I stiffened slightly, my breath catching. He was so close. Too close. But if he noticed, he didn't say anything. "Now, press the clutch," he instructed gently. "That's the one on the left." I nodded quickly, focusing on my movements, trying not to let the heat of his presence distract me. He talked me through it, his voice steady, guiding me with patience I hadn't expected. Every time I hesitated, he reassured me. Every time I messed up, he chuckled softly and told me to try again. "You're doing great," he murmured. I swallowed, determined to focus. Finally, after a few more attempts, I managed to shift gears and move the car forward. A burst of excitement shot through me. "I did it!" I gasped, gripping the wheel as the car rolled slowly down the dirt path. He laughed, his eyes bright with amusement. "See, you're a natural." I turned to him, grinning, exhilarated by the moment, by the freedom, by the fact that he had taught me something I had always wanted to learn. And without thinking, without hesitation or doubt, I leaned in and kissed him. It happened so fast that I barely had time to process it. 1 second, I was basking in the rush of success, and the next, my lips were on his, soft and fleeting, a whisper of something forbidden. As soon as I realized what I had done, I pulled back, my breath catching, my pulse racing in sheer disbelief. I had kissed him. Oh God. I stared at him, my heart hammering against my ribs. He looked just as stunned as I felt, his lips slightly parted, his eyes locked onto mine with something unreadable. For a second, we just sat there, the car still moving slowly, the world around us forgotten. Then, to my utter shock, he smiled. A slow, knowing, almost teasing smile. "Well," he said, his voice lower now, "that's one way to celebrate." I felt my face flush with heat. That wasn't supposed to happen," I stammered, looking away, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. He didn't laugh. He didn't make a joke. Instead, he reached out and gently placed his hand over mine, his touch warm, grounding. "It's okay," he said softly. I didn't mind. I turned to him then, my breath still shaky. "That's not the point." He studied me for a moment, his thumb brushing lightly against my skin. Then what is? I opened my mouth, but no words came out, because I didn't know. I didn't know how to explain the emotions twisting inside me. The fear, the excitement, the pull toward him that I couldn't seem to shake. The realization that I wanted to kiss him again. And that terrified me. I swallowed hard and quickly pulled my hand away, gripping the wheel again, forcing myself to focus. We should get back. He didn't push. He just nodded, his expression thoughtful, as if he understood exactly what I wasn't saying. As we drove back in silence, I could feel his eyes on me, and deep down I knew this wasn't over. It had only just begun. The drive back was quiet, too quiet. I kept my hands firm on the wheel, focusing on every turn, every bump in the road, using the mechanics of driving to steady myself. But my mind was a storm, a rush of thoughts colliding with each other, none of them making sense. I had kissed him. And worse, I had liked it. I could still feel the ghost of it. The warmth of his lips, the way he had looked at me afterward, not shocked, not even confused, but sure, as if he had been waiting for it. The worst part, a part of me had been waiting, too. As we pulled into the driveway, the house bathed in the last light of the evening, I felt his eyes on me again. Not pressing, not demanding, just watching. As if he was waiting for me to say something. But I didn't. Instead, I climbed out of the car, my movements rushed, eager to put distance between us before I did something reckless again. We stepped inside, and the warmth of the house, the familiar scent of my sister's cooking, should have been comforting. But the moment we entered, my sister's voice broke through the silence. "You two are awfully quiet," she remarked, peering at us from the kitchen with a curious expression. "Where did you go?" I froze. Before I could answer, he spoke first, his tone casual, smooth. "Just out to the woods." I showed her my cabin. My sister's gaze flickered between us, and something in her eyes sharpened. She wasn't just curious. She was studying me. I forced a smile. "I think I got a little too much fresh air," I added quickly, pressing a hand to my forehead for effect. "I feel a bit off. I think I'll just head to bed early." Her brows knit together in concern. "Are you okay?" "Yeah," I said, already backing toward the hallway. "Just tired." I didn't wait for her to press further. I didn't dare. I hurried upstairs, my heart hammering, locking myself in my room the moment I stepped inside. Leaning against the door, I let out a shaky breath. What was happening to me? I barely made it through changing into my nightclothes before there was a soft knock at the door. I froze. And then, before I could tell him not to come in, he did. He stepped inside, a bottle of wine in one hand, 2 glasses in the other, and a laptop tucked under his arm. His expression was light, almost playful, as if the weight of what had happened earlier wasn't clawing at him the way it was at me. "You ran off," he said simply. I swallowed. I wasn't feeling well. His lips twitched like he wanted to challenge that excuse, but instead, he just lifted the wine. I thought maybe a drink would help. Then he raised the laptop. "And a movie." I hesitated. I should have said no. I should have told him to leave. But I didn't. I nodded. "Okay." He grinned like he had won something, then walked in and set the laptop at the foot of the bed, pouring the wine as he sat beside me. He was close. Too close. I took the glass he offered, sipping just to have something to do with my hands, feeling the warmth of the alcohol slide down my throat, doing little to calm my nerves. The movie started, a random pick, something lighthearted, something that should have made the tension in the room dissolve. But it didn't. Instead, it thickened. Halfway through, he leaned in a little closer, his voice low, smooth. "You did really well today." I glanced at him, confused. "What?" "With the car," he said, smiling. "I wasn't expecting you to pick it up so quickly." I let out a small laugh, shaking my head. "You're just saying that." "I'm not." His gaze was steady, warm. "You surprise me." Something about the way he said it sent a flutter through my chest. I looked back at the screen, but I wasn't watching the movie anymore. I was too aware of him, of the way his shoulder barely brushed against mine, of the way he swirled the wine in his glass, his fingers long and steady. And then, before I could think, before I could stop it, he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. My breath hitched. I turned to him, and the moment I did, he leaned in and kissed me. Soft, gentle, but not hesitant. I inhaled sharply, my mind screaming that this was a bad idea, that we were crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. But my body melted into it. His hand slid along my cheek, fingers grazing my skin like he was memorizing me. And when he finally pulled back, his eyes searched mine. "I've wanted to do that for a long time," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. My heart slammed against my ribs. I couldn't even finish the sentence. His lips curled into a small, knowing smile. "I think you feel the same." I swallowed hard, my pulse pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. Because he was right. I did feel the same. I just didn't know what to do with it. So instead of answering, I looked away, taking another sip of my wine, trying to steady myself. But I could still feel the heat of his gaze on me. And I knew that, no matter how much I tried to deny it, we had just stepped over a threshold. And there was no going back. "Bye,"